Hello and welcome to the Law, Public Safety, Corrections, and Safety and Security Career Choice virtual panel discussion. Today you will be hearing from professionals in the field and have an opportunity to ask some questions. We hope these discussions will give you insight into the field and help you make informed choices about the careers you were thinking about pursuing and the pathways you should consider to get there. Before we begin, there are a few webinar tips to share. 1, to interact with the panelist and moderator, submit a question through the Q&A feature found in the controls at the bottom of your screen. You can submit a question anonymously if you would like, but if you include your name in the submission, we'll give you a shout out before your question. Number 2, you cannot interact with other attendees through the webinar. The chat feature has been disabled and only our staff members can view your questions submitted through the Q&A. Number 3, students participating in the full panel discussion today will be entered into a $50 Visa gift card drawing. If you are participating as a whole class, don't worry, we'll be reaching out to your teacher for a list of student names. If you need technical assistance, you can call the help desk at 434-766-6772. And now, without any further delay, I would like to turn things over to the discussion's moderator, Lisa Watkins.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome. My name is Lisa Watkins, and I'm president of the Martinsville Henry County Chamber of Commerce. And we have with us today some panelists that are going to share a wealth of information with you, and we're so glad to have them with us, and we're so glad to have you with us as well. So Shannon Collins from Martinsville Henry County 911 Center, Eric Cronin from the Danville Public Defender's Office, David Ferguson from Danville Police Department, and I believe that Richie Guil is going to be able to join us a little later in the program from Danville Fire Department. So thank you again for joining us. And if each of our panelists would give us a brief introduction and let us know your organization name and your job title and just a brief explanation of what you do or what your company or organization does, including your mission. So if you could maybe just start in the order that I introduced you, Shannon, if you wouldn't mind going first. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. My name's Shannon, again, Shannon Collins. I work for the Martinsville Henry County 911 Center. Here at the 911 Center, we answer emergency and non-emergency calls for Martinsville and Henry County. Our mission is just provide support for the residents here of Martinsville and Henry County, whether it be emergency or non-emergency calls, fire, police, rescue, and assist the community in any way that we can.
I'll go next. Hi, my name is Eric Cronin, and I'm an attorney with the Danville Public Defender's Office. I'm a senior trial attorney here. I've been doing this for about 20 years. And our mission is to defend people, represent people who are charged with crimes in Virginia. And the law says that anyone who's charged with a crime is entitled to have counsel, to have legal representation, because they could potentially be incarcerated and lose their rights. So the Supreme Court has held that if someone cannot afford an attorney, then the state will provide an attorney to that individual. So that is my role. I get appointed to cases by the court, and I defend people who are charged with a variety of crimes and who could potentially lose their rights, their freedoms. So that I'm there to make sure that all of their rights are protected and that they have a fair trial. And that's my role.
Thank you. And David?
All right. Good morning. I'm Sergeant David Ferguson from the Danville Police Department. Right now, I'm in charge of community engagement. Just previously, I was doing hiring and recruiting for the police department. So I know all about what you need to do as far as becoming a police officer, the steps to take and stuff like that. Prior to that, I've been with the department for about 19 years. So I spent about 16 years on the street, 5 of those years undercover, and 2 of those years on the FBI task force. So any questions you may have, or any way I can help, just let me know.
Thank you. So we're going to kick it off with some of the questions that we have over the next few minutes. So each of you, if you could start with, have you always worked in law and public safety field? And what initially drew you or interested you in the field? And maybe we'll go opposite direction. So David, if we could start with you, you gave a little bit of feedback about what you'd been doing. If you could just expand on that, please.
Yeah. Well, to be honest, even when I was in recruiting, I would ask the same question: what makes you want to be a police officer? And you get the same answer, you know, you want to help people and you want to do that. And that's true, but it's really a cool job, you know. The bottom line, it's rewarding. You know, I didn't realize how rewarding it was until you get into it. It's not as bad as people make it seem. You know, when you look on the news and stuff like that, you basically just see all the bad parts of policing, you know, or law enforcement. But law enforcement is really, you know, there to help your community and, you know, to make a change.
In my role in my job, I work with law enforcement all the time. So we overlap a lot with the cases. Oftentimes, my client, the situation will begin with a 911 call, and then of course the police are involved, and then the matter goes to court, and then I get appointed to the case. So I will receive the call logs from the 911 center and the police reports, and talk with the officers in court and so forth. The job, I agree, it is rewarding. I was in private practice before I started working as a public defender, and as a public defender, I work for the Commonwealth of Virginia, so it is a public service job. Initially, I worked in small firms. I also worked in a large firm, and in the private sector. And in that realm, the law encompasses many things. It can encompass domestic situations, child custody, divorces. It can encompass business law, many things. I chose to go into the public sector because I think, for reasons similar to what the previous speaker said, it's rewarding. You feel like you're doing something to benefit people, the public, your community. So it gives you kind of a larger role than just earning a living, and that's rewarding. And also, you know, there are benefits to working in the public sector. And in my role, it is sort of an essential service. And so you have job security, you know. The economy can go up and down, but there are certain things that society needs and requires, and those jobs will be there. So that's another factor to consider. And that's what I'd say.
Thank you. And Shannon, if you could share the same with our audience.
Honestly, before I came into the public safety arena, I was in childcare. I worked at a daycare facility. I had no clue actually what dispatchers did. And I was scared to death, honestly. I saw the ad in the paper and I thought, you know, I think I'm going to check into this. And I had a friend that actually worked here. I came and I job shadowed and I sat with her and I thought, when I left, I have got to apply for this. I've got to take a chance. I've got to apply for this. I applied for the job. Luckily, I got it. And I've been here for 13 years. I love it. I love to help people. There's not a single second in any day where my job is the same. There's something new all the time. So it's definitely rewarding. I love to help people. I love people. So I think it's something that you should definitely check out. I think you would enjoy it.
Thank you. So I'm sensing a theme with our panelists here this morning, and you probably are too, you students out there. So I'm going to ask this question, but I think I already know, or you all probably already know some of the answers that they're going to give. What's your favorite aspect of the job, and or what do you enjoy most about your career choice? And Eric, do you want to go first this time?
Sure. I think it's like one of the speakers said, it's a fun job. You're working with the public, you're working with people. There's always variety, always change. It's not a boring job. It's not dull. Every day I go to work, I have to be ready. I don't know what's going to walk through the door. And I've always got things lined up coming towards me, cases going to court and so forth that I've got to keep up with. There's a lot of personal contact, interviewing witnesses, talking with police officers, judges, other lawyers, prosecutors. So it's a dynamic job. It's definitely not a dull and boring job. And that was one of the things I considered, in practicing law. There are some legal jobs where you're kind of locked away in a room with documents. This job is certainly not that. It's constantly changing. There's endless variety. I've been doing it 20 years. I'm still not bored. There's still new cases coming. You think you've seen it all, you haven't seen it all. There's always going to be some little variation or some unique thing about a case that you're going to have in the next week or two. So it definitely holds your interest.
Thank you. And Sergeant Ferguson? You're muted.
Sorry, I'm muted. The thing I like most is, like I said, being a police officer is rewarding. The thing about it is when you're out there on the street, a lot of times it could be 99% boredom, but it's that other 1% when something does happen. And we've kind of geared ourselves more toward community engagement. So we can, when we go to court now, the way we treat people, we'll be a little bit more prepared for Mr. Cronin on the defense side, so you just treat people fairly and do your job according to policy and procedures and treat people like you want to be treated. And it gets very rewarding, that way you get the bad guys off the street that deserve to be off. And, there's a lot of good people out there that we serve in the city of Danville.
Thank you. And Shannon, if you had anything else to add to what you like the most about your position.
Just as I said before, when we answer those phones, we never know what to expect. I mean, it could be something as simple as a dog barking or something as serious as a car crash or maybe a lady having a baby. I mean, it's always something. It's never the same. So it's just keeps us on the edge of our seat. It's always changing. So it's a great job.
Sure. So we've talked about things that you love about your career choice. Could you share with us some of the things that you find most challenging in your positions? Shannon, you want to kick us off?
The hardest part of my job is probably not knowing the end. Of course, I have the first contact with the person when they make the phone call. And then I send the response, whether it be the police or the fire or the rescue. I never know the end. I never know the outcome, whether the patient survived, if it was a really bad call, or if the arrest was, of course, I know if the arrest was made, but the outcome of the call, the end of the story per se. I never know the end of the story. Sometimes we as dispatchers strive to want more, because we've built that story. We've been involved up until that point, but we never get to know the end of the story. Sometimes it's very emotional, mentally draining, because we have to sit there with that mother crying, holding her baby who's lifeless. So it's very mentally and emotionally straining on us. Not so much physically, because we sit in a chair for 12 hours a day. But as far as mentally and emotionally, it's very hard. But you learn different ways to handle that, and all of us have our own way of dealing with it. So it's just part of the job, and you just learn how to handle it.
Thank you. I know you each have some tough things that you have to deal with. Eric, would you mind sharing with us what's the most challenging part?
The most challenging part is what makes it interesting. It's all the people I deal with. And of course, I'm appointed to cases. My clients are charged with crimes. A lot of them have substance abuse problems. Many of them have mental health issues. And if I'm appointed to a case, I'll go to see someone in the jail. They've just been picked up off the street. They may be coming down off drugs. They may be off their medications for their mental health condition. So I may sit down with someone who's a paranoid schizophrenic coming off of meth. And that can be an interesting conversation. Actually, most of the time they're half asleep. But needless to say, the people who make the job interesting make it challenging too. And they have a lot on the line. It's their freedom that's at stake. If they are incarcerated, they'll lose their home, they'll lose their car. If they have a job, they won't have that. Sometimes their family members will leave them. So I deal with people who are in crisis a lot of times. And oftentimes the news that I have to give them is not good. I'm not going to tell them that they're going to walk out of that courtroom. They're going to go into custody. And sometimes I have to tell them, here's a plea agreement and you're going to go to prison for 20 years. But if you can't take this agreement and we go to trial, the outcome is very likely to be that you could be incarcerated for the rest of your life. That's a tough decision to make for a person. And you have to sit there and explain it to them and sort of guide them through the process. And, mentally, you deal with people who are in a variety of different situations when you're doing all of this. And of course, they have family members who are calling you, concerned about their sister or their brother or their son. And you have to deal with all the family members. So the people make the job challenging. And you're dealing with people in crisis, and that can be a stressful situation sometimes. But, as you do the job, and like I said, I've been doing it for 20 years, you get better and better at handling those situations, and you know what to expect more and more. So you're more prepared. But yeah, that's what I would say about that.
Thank you. And Sergeant Ferguson, please.
Yes, he's absolutely right. That is the challenging part, dealing with people and dealing with children sometimes. Sometimes you go on a call and you may have to separate the children from the parents. That's always hard. And sometimes you go on a call, if we do have a homicide or something like that, the most challenging part is, and the hardest part is notifying the family that they may have lost a loved one, to some kind of violence. And I can also agree with Shannon as far as soon as the COVID hit, I spent a month working in our 911 dispatch center, taking all non-emergency calls because we didn't want our officers to be exposed. So I got to see firsthand exactly what the dispatchers do and how they handle these calls. And a lot of times, they'll just be sitting there and nothing's going on, but you never know. As soon as you answer that phone, you have somebody on the other end of that phone that's just screaming bloody murder. So since I've done that, I've kind of advocated to the rest of the officers about what goes on in dispatch, because when the police call dispatch, they think they're just sitting there waiting for that, twiddling their thumbs, waiting for them. They have their own personal dispatcher. So the challenging part is doing it all as a team. The dispatcher has to get that information to you after somebody's been screaming in her ear. And then you get to a hectic situation. You may have some kind of homicide or something like that, but the call goes beyond that. And like she said, the dispatcher never knows the outcome, but we know the outcome. We know the who, what, and where. We have to notify families. And one of the worst things is to have to notify a family that they've lost a loved one. So it gets challenging.
Thank you. So let's switch gears a little bit. I know you all are putting questions in the Q&A, and thank you so much for that. We're going to address those toward the end of our program today. So thank you for the wonderful questions that you're asking. They're really great questions. So for our panelists, if you could share with our students what your background and education is, and did you follow a traditional pathway, or was it something more non-traditional to get into your current career that you're in now? So Sergeant Ferguson, could you start us out?
I could start off. I traditionally, I did not attend college. I was in management straight out of high school. So I worked in transportation management, and then I went into retail. While I was in retail, I started doing loss prevention. I was the head of Kmart's loss prevention on this region. So that prompted me to want to get into law enforcement. I started dealing with a lot of police officers. So I'm not recommending, I do recommend everybody attend college, get the best education you can. Even our starting salary is better if you come in with a degree. But as the police department, we don't require it, but you do have to have a high school diploma and a clean record in order to get onto the police department.
Thank you. And Shannon, could you share a little bit about your career path?
Mine was similar to Sergeant Ferguson's. I was very non-traditional. I, of course, graduated from high school. I did attend some college, but I did not finish. I do recommend that you all finish college. It's just a perk. Here at the dispatch center, you have to have your high school diploma or your GED, but we do all on-job training. We train you here in the center. Of course, CPR training is a requirement, but we will train you here as well. The only requirement that we require is your high school diploma or your GED. There aren't any perks for having your college diploma, but it's a personal perk. For me, it's unfinished business, so I will be returning very shortly. But yeah, there's no perks here. Our starting salary is about $33,000 a year. So it's great money, great benefits. But college is always a perk, always a perk, but not a requirement.
Yeah, if I could just piggyback back on that, she is correct, because at the Danville Police Department, without a college degree, we start you off at about $37,500. But if you come in with a degree, then we'll start you off at about $40,000. So that's actually good. And we do put you through our own training process. We have a 6-month academy. It's 23 weeks. You have to go to the academy and you have to get certified by DCJS. And we're constantly training. Once you become a police officer, you train all the time, and you have to stay physically fit as well.
Same here.
Awesome.
I'll go next. So I went the traditional route. So after high school, I went to college for 4 years. I went to Mary Washington College. Now it's Mary Washington University. But and there I majored in English. And then after that, I went to law school at William & Mary. But what I'll say is this: if you're going to go to college and law school, it's a big investment. 4 years of college, 3 years of law school. That's 7 years right there. 7 years, you're not making money. You don't have income. You're just racking up debt. Okay. So, and the cost of education has gone up just in my lifetime since I went through college and law school. The costs have gone up significantly. So I'm concerned about students coming out now from law school and the amount of debt they carry. It makes it difficult for them to consider public service jobs. There are some, I guess, initiatives to help people go into law school and becoming attorneys with that. And if you go work in the public sector, there's actually funding for you to help pay off your student loans. I think it's like $10,000 a year. The last I heard was in addition to your salary, they'll give you that towards your student loans. And I'm not current on that. I didn't use that program, but it is out there. And that's a factor some people, that's in people's minds when they decide to go and work in the public sector now and do what I do. They can do something meaningful, but also get assistance with their student loans. So there's that. What I would say, if you're in high school, a young person thinking about it, plan ahead. It's going to take a number of years, and you'll have to take out loans for most of you. So that's something to definitely consider. As far as what to study, I know people who are lawyers who have majored in everything in college. So you don't necessarily have to major in political science. People major in a variety of things. And some people don't decide to go to law school until they're through college. It's something they decide to do at that point. So what I would suggest is that if you plan on going that route, go to college, major in something that you're interested in. If you're thinking about law, then, it's going to be an option for you, whatever your major is. Some people who are very focused will major in maybe political science or something like that. And I think some schools even have like a pre-law program. But like I said, you don't have to do that. I majored in English. And I know I work with lawyers, one majored in French. So you can major in a lot of different things and do that. I will mention this, there's another way to go, and only 7 states in the country do this still. But back in the day, they didn't have law schools. So people who became attorneys would read law. So they never went to law school. They just worked in an office and read law. And Virginia is one state that still allows you to do that. And you can Google it. Law Reader Program, Virginia. And I know a judge and I know an attorney personally who never went to law school, but what they did instead was they read law. And very few people go that route, but it does exist.
Thank you. We're getting ready to get into questions because we have so many, but if you all, our panelists could address a couple more questions for me, maybe roll this into one. Are you originally from Southern Virginia? And if not, what brought you to the area? And what do you love about Southern Virginia?
Well, I'll go first because I'm not originally from Southern Virginia. I'm actually a northerner. I'm from Newark, New Jersey. I came to Danville in 1990 through my brother. My brother got married, and if anybody's ever been to Newark, New Jersey, it's a high crime area, even back in the 90s. So I started having children and just wanted a better life for them. So he told me about Danville, and I came down to Danville. It was a little slow. It was a culture shock at first, but Danville has grown tremendously since I came here in 1990. So I'm really loving it now. I'm a River District person now. So.
Well, we're glad to have you. Eric, do you mind sharing?
Sure. So I'm from Northern Virginia. I grew up in Alexandria. I went to T.C. Williams High School. And then, like I told you, I went to college and law school after that. And what I like about Southern Virginia, Danville, where I am, is it's not Northern Virginia. The cost of living there is astronomical. There's tons of traffic. It's less stressful here. I can drive to work in 6 minutes. I don't have to worry about a traffic jam. And also in the courts, I can say this because I've worked in courts in Northern Virginia, Hampton Roads, and here, where I am in Danville now, and also in Martinsville, Henry County, and Stewart. But the courts here run smoother. If you go into a courtroom, for example, in Arlington, there's just people all over the place. They'll have a morning docket and everybody just shows up. And there'll be 100 people in there and they'll slog their way through the docket. The way they do it here, there's a case set every 15 minutes. And so it runs very smoothly. And they can do that because they're not so overwhelmed with people. The courts in Northern Virginia and Hampton Roads deal with a very high volume. And here in Danville, we have our volume, but it's not like that. So what I like about this area is I think it's a less stressful lifestyle. There's a lower cost of living, less traffic. I think if you were going to raise a family, it's a good environment for that. So that's what I would say.
Thank you. And Shannon, if you could share with us.
I was born and raised here in Southern Virginia. I have no plans of leaving. I absolutely love it here. I mean, my kids attend Patrick County schools. The drive every morning, just seeing the mountain views. I love the weather. I know we rarely ever get snow, but occasionally you get snow. Now it's starting to warm up. I just love it here. The people are nice most of the time. So I just love it here.
Thank you. Okay, so we're going to switch gears and go to some of our questions. Sergeant Ferguson, have you ever had a case or call that you responded to that changed the way you look at people or life, etc.?
Yeah, you try to stay neutral. You really don't want to change the way you look at people, but it does make you change the way you look at life. I mean, I had a case with a young man, and it ended up in his death, but I had to go to the autopsy, to determine the cause of death. And if you've never seen an autopsy before, once you see an autopsy, it does change the way you look at life. But as far as being a police officer, like Shannon said, 1 minute you go from a barking dog to the next minute an armed robbery. So you try to stay right there, that fine line in the middle. I mean, I have taken people to jail, and my thing I tell them is, this doesn't make you a bad person. You made a bad decision. What you do from this point forward could make you a bad person if you keep making these decisions. But right now, we'll go do what we have to do. Once you get out of this jam or this trouble, just don't do it anymore. Just start your life from this point forward is what I try to tell them. There's nothing you can do about what already happened. So no, I try my best not to look at people differently, because everybody has something going on. You never know what somebody's problem is and what they're going through in their life. But people do make bad decisions. And we're not only there to lock them up, I try to help them as well.
Thank you. And this question is from Tyler Martin. He would like to know, is there a certain age you need to be to apply for any of your jobs?
At the police department?
Yes, for
Yeah.
all three of you. Yes.
Okay.
If you
Yes,
want to
ma'am.
go ahead and answer that one for us.
Okay. The police department, yes, ma'am. You have to be at least 20 years of age in order to apply for the police department. And like I said, you have to have a high school diploma or GED.
Thank you. Shannon, is there a minimum age there at the 911 center?
I'm assuming as long as you have your high school diploma or GED, there would not be an age.
Okay. And Eric, yours is kind of by education, so.
Right, there's no minimum age, and perhaps there are some really bright, motivated kids who have finished high school when they were 14 and college when they were 16 and gone to law school. I don't know, but everybody I've ever met, by the time they get done with college, they're about 21 years old. So I'd say most people going to law school are in the 22 to 25-year-old range. I wasn't. I was a little older than that, but that's where everybody's at pretty much.
Thank you. And this question is from, I think, Axel Cruz. When you first started your job, was it hard? Shannon, do you want to start us off?
Absolutely. It was a challenge. It was a huge challenge. It was tons to learn. And I was crazy at first, but I had a great trainer because the training was intense, but one step at a time, and I learned it.
Thank you.
Yeah, I have to agree. At first, this job was very challenging because of the physical restraints. You have to be physically fit. And, even though you get into this job, you think it's cool. Once you start doing it, it's terrifying until you realize what you're doing, because it's not just what you see on TV. It's a lot behind the scenes. There's a lot to learn. And then you go to the academy for 6 months. And when you get out the academy, they tell you to forget everything you learned there, because they're going to train you what they want you to know here. You do your field training for 9 weeks, and that's when you really get into it. But once you get out on your own and you start doing this, it's kind of terrifying, but you can separate that. I always say, people would ask me, are you scared? No, you don't. Scared is a feeling that you can't control, but you get concerned a lot and you just have to know how to deal with it.
Thank you. And Eric?
Yeah, I think any new job is challenging. my job, I'm not gonna have somebody potentially shooting at me. I don't have to worry about that. But when I started out, what they'll do in the office that I worked at, they're not gonna give you a murder case the first week, okay? They're gonna start you, I started out in juvenile court. So I was helping out kids who were disorderly at school, things like that. You know, low stakes cases where people were gonna maybe spend 2 days in detention if the judge got mad at them. They start you out with not with the heavy stuff, and then gradually it builds up as you get more experience. So I would say law school, you spend 3 years reading cases basically and taking exams, but there's not a lot of real world experience going in the courtroom, trying cases, doing all of that. Most law schools have these legal skills clinics where they sort of have, where they have mock trials and moot court, and they try to prepare you for that. But of course, the real world is the best way to learn. And even though you've read all the cases and so forth, it's certainly a new experience. But I'll say this, it's a fun experience. You know, you're doing something that you want to do, and you're in court every day. With my job, some lawyers never go to court. But with me, I'm always going to court. I'm always getting new cases. I think it's a fun job. It's a pretty exciting, entertaining job. And it was a challenge initially, but they didn't give me any overwhelming cases. And the benefit to working in an office as I do, you'll have attorneys who are more experienced than you, and you can always go to them. And we're always asking each other to get what's your opinion of this case? What do you think of these facts? Should we take this case to trial? Should we get a plea agreement? So you have people to mentor you and discuss your cases with you in a public defender's office and in the Commonwealth Attorney's office also. And I'll say this about the public defender and Commonwealth Attorney's offices: a lot of new lawyers, that's where they get their start, because they want to get that trial experience. And that's a great way to do it. Go be a public defender, go be a Commonwealth attorney. You'll be in court every day, and you'll get a lot of invaluable trial experience, learning how to make objections, present evidence, make opening and closing arguments. You'll have the opportunity to stand in front of a jury and try and persuade them on behalf of your client. So there's a lot of things that can be challenging there, but I did not feel overwhelmed. And initially, there were always people there to mentor me. And also, it's just the challenge and the excitement of the new job really is the main thing I remember.
Thank you. And also, Eric, could you try to address this question for us from Daniel Kahn? Do you know which lawyers make the most income?
Some lawyers make a lot of money, okay? I do not. I make probably what the other panelists here make. I don't make much more than that. I work for the state of Virginia. But, you know, with that said, we have a pension program and have good health benefits. I have good leave. So there are benefits to public sector. But in private practice, if you got the right stuff, yeah, you can make millions of dollars. But I'll tell you this, I've been to law school. I know lots of lawyers. Law school is very competitive. You go to college, you take all the smartest people there and then put them somewhere else. And that's going to be law school. When I breezed through college, I got to law school. I was in there with some tough people. They were smart. They were motivated. I mean, they meant business. There was no joking around with them. So yeah, what I will say is this, and law school is very competitive. If you want to go work at those big firms in those big cities and make the big bucks, and we're talking, you know, New York, DC, places like that, then you better be in the top 5% of your law school class. You got to make the law review. That's tough. There's a lot of very competitive hurdles in law school where they sort of separate the cream of the crop from the rest. Now, I was not in the cream. I was not in the top 5%, but I knew the people who were, and they were very smart and very motivated. And then when they went into private practice, here's the other thing. They are not working 40 hours a week. You can forget about that. Okay. And I did work in DC, and I did work in a big firm in DC out of law school. And I can tell you, the hours were crazy. The average work week was 80 hours. I billed a client 1 week, I think it was 97 hours. There were people who were literally sleeping under their desk for 4 hours so that they could continue to work through the project, because there are always deadlines. That's another thing about the law. there's deadlines to keep track of, there's filings that must be done. And if you miss those for a client, and if you want to make the big bucks, you're going to be representing these corporations and so forth. And if you don't do your job right, there's millions of dollars at stake there that you're responsible for. So what I would say is some people make a lot of money at law, but they have a lot of responsibility and they work very hard for it. So keep that in mind. Now, that's not everybody. A lot of people aren't cut out for that, and I certainly wasn't. So, I had a little experience with private practice, but then I decided that I'd rather work in the public sector. And with my job, what I can say is it is a 9 to 5. Rarely am I here on a weekend, and rarely do I stay after 5 o'clock. So for me, that's what I wanted. It's a more manageable lifestyle. Others who are very competitive and they want to work in a big city, work on the biggest projects. I'm talking mergers and corporate mergers and so forth. And also there's high stakes litigation. I mean, there's big time criminal defense attorneys out there who make a name for themselves, and attorneys who do domestic stuff, divorce attorneys. So there's a lot of different areas of the law that you can specialize in. And certainly there are some who have very lucrative practices, but they work hard for it.
Thank you. So we've got about 2 minutes left for the next question, and then I believe that the wonderful staff members at the Institute are going to reach out to our panelists to try to respond to the other questions for our students. So Dana Wilson would like to know, what is the one thing that you wish people knew about or did before pursuing your field, and what is a key characteristic a person needs to be successful in your role? And just in the interest of time, maybe keep both questions to just a couple of words each. So what do you think people wish people knew, and what's a key characteristic? Sergeant Ferguson, you want to start us out?
I just wish people knew when it comes to police officers that we are people first. We put our shoes on one shoe at a time, just like you do. And I'm sorry, I might have missed the rest of that because my boss was calling me at the same time. But that is a main characteristic that I would wish that people could take away from it, that police officers, we come home to families just like you do every day. You know, we want to go home. We want everybody to go home safely. So that's the biggest part of my characteristic I can give you. Thank you.
And Shannon?
I would probably say the mental and emotional stress that it causes, and just the different ways that we have to learn how to deal with it. That's probably the hardest part. I wish that people would think more on that before they apply for the position, because this answering the phone is not all that we do. We pride ourselves also in keeping our officers safe. I mean, that's one of our main goals, is getting our officers home safe every day also. So that's a huge part of our job as well. So keeping our responders safe. So that's probably all.
Thank you. And the one characteristic or a key characteristic, what would be the one thing if you could choose one? Successful.
To be successful at the job?
Yes.
Just having an open mind and being as positive as possible, because it's a lot of people in one small area that work together daily, and we're together here normally more than we're with our family at home. So it's hard, and all of us are different, but we have to work together as a team. So.
And Eric, if you could share with us.
Sure. What I would say is the one key thing is your reputation matters. Okay. If you're going to be an attorney and you're going to be standing next to someone, basically helping them get through the toughest time of their life where they could potentially lose everything, you need to have people believe in you, and you need to consider your reputation at all times, and not just when you're at work, when you're on the internet, when you're out at the mall, wherever. people are always looking at you and they're always appraising you. So if you're going to work in the legal field, one essential thing for an attorney is that they have credibility, people believe them, and they have that reputation. So if you're in high school now, you should start thinking about that. And I hear stories about young people who do dumb things on social media, and then apparently that's there indefinitely, and it can come back to haunt them. So I would start thinking now about my reputation and how I'm going to fit into the community in a greater way once I join the workforce. And the fact that my reputation is going to be how people know me and how they see me. And it's important that I be perceived as someone with a good reputation, someone who is credible, reliable. All of those things are very important in my field.
Thank you. And we're out of time, so I just want to thank each of our panelists for the wealth of information that they've shared, and thanks for the opportunity to be here today. And I wish you the very best.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you, Lisa, and thank you to all of our panelists. Hold on one second, my screen disappeared. Thank you to all of our panelists for sharing your knowledge and experience with us today. And for our student attendees, we hope you are energized and excited to research opportunities in the law, public safety, corrections, and security career cluster. The Career Choice website is a great place to start. We will be drawing the gift card recipient name in the coming week after we have had a chance to follow up with our teacher whole class registrations. The gift card recipient will be contacted through their school. You can provide yourself with another opportunity to win a $50 Visa gift card by completing the Career Choice scavenger hunt found on the Career Choice website right now, and the Career Choice survey coming on March 22nd. Each student completing both activities will be entered into a drawing for their school. Good luck, and we hope you will continue to take the opportunities to imagine your potential, connect with employers, and explore your career possibilities. Thank you.